explore it. And that's when I found the Don't Keep Your Day Job podcast. And I started listening to it. My husband was actually out of town on business, and I found that podcast, and I was just listening to it 24/7. Like, I would wake up, put it on, listen until I had to go to work, listen on the ride. You know, there's like any moment that I could spare, I was listening to that podcast. So Kathy Heller is just like the biggest inspiration in my life. And so that's really where things went in terms of my really starting to explore my creative side again.
And when did you start listening to the podcast?
That was in January, so it hasn't been all that long.
Oh, wow. Just this year.
Yeah.
And what was it about the podcast that woke up something inside of you, for those of you who don't know the podcast?
Yeah, so Kathy Heller is amazing, and I think that's how we connected. Mm-hmm. But I think when I heard her give the permission that it's okay to have these feelings, other people are having these feelings, you're not alone, and here are some things that you can do to really start to get, the support that you need, start to figure things out for yourself. That little intro that she does, it's kind of like the words are kind of escaping my mind right now, but she does this little intro, and immediately when she said all the things that she always says about, finding your passion and really pursuing what you're interested in, and it's okay to do that, it just connected with me right away. I had to keep listening.
I like when she says it's okay to be messy.
Oh, yeah.
That does help a lot with at least my creativity.
Yeah, I'm constantly doing messy first drafts because, as you can already tell, my interests are all over the board. I have my hand in a lot of different pots right now. And I even just yesterday, I've gotten back into writing recently, but this poem just jumped off the page and it told me that it wanted to be a song. So the melody just came to me. And because I'm in this Don't Keep Your Day Job listening group, the Baltimore area listening group, I was able to connect with this wonderful man named Dan, who's in a band, and he put some chords to it right away. So I've got this messy first draft of a song I never even expected to happen.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Now, you are also blogging?
I am. It's weird to think about it that way, but yes, it is. It's definitely blogging. It's a website called Medium.
And what does Medium do?
Yeah, so it's a platform that you can start writing on immediately after you create an account, and it's highly recommended that you pay the money to become a member, because then you have access to more articles, and if you do want to write, it's really necessary to be a member. It's not required, but it's pretty necessary. And it's like $5 a month or $40 or $50 for the entire year. So it's really pretty reasonable to support writers and to become a writer yourself. But the basic concept is that it was created by one of the founding creators of Twitter. And so it was meant for longer format writing. It was created about 5 years ago. I still haven't looked up exactly when it was created. But it was created about 5 years ago for longer format tech writing mostly. And it's transitioned to become a platform for a lot of different types of writing, not just tech writing. So the variety and diversity of the writing on Medium has really expanded. But if you go onto Medium and you become a paid member, you can get paid for your writing right away. And there are folks that on Medium that are making their entire livings by being by posting on Medium, by writing on Medium.
So it can be done.
Yes. Now, when you first start out, you definitely are making that kind of money. I think my first month I made $8. But, it's still really exciting to get any amount of money for your writing when it's just sitting in a Word document before that. So
yeah, that's great. So It's blogging, and have you put any of your poetry on the site?
I do. So mostly I'm writing poetry. I put the vast majority of my poetry on Medium. And I'm climbing up the ladder. I've only been on there for 2 months. I'm definitely not a Medium expert, but I'm learning more and more, and I really enjoy it.
What is some of the poetry you're writing about? Is there a certain theme, or is it anything goes?
Sure, yeah. So pretty much anything goes. At this point, my husband is well aware that he is fodder for all of my poetic creativity. So if he does something funny or crazy, then, I warn him that it's probably going to become a poem. But a lot of it is about my childhood and my past relationships. But I'm often inspired by the things that happen around me, and just like the funny, quirky things. I just posted one poem today that was about the airport. We went on a trip recently, and just being in the airport with all the crazy people really inspired a funny little poem. So I posted that one today. So some of them are funny, a lot of them are more serious. Yeah.
And you also write articles on Medium?
I do mostly personal essays, so stories that have happened in my life. Or, like I said, I was just traveling, so I'm a part of a publication called One Table, One World, and I'm going to be submitting an article about my experience in London, my most recent experience in London. I also have submitted an article there. I was published there talking about why it's so difficult to cook rice. I can't manage to cook rice. I always mess it up. That got a good reception. So a whole bunch of random things.
Now, what is your writing process? Do you tackle some things with pen and paper or a keyboard? Is it a certain time of day?
Sure. So I did start with a pen and paper, but I've really gotten more used to being able to write on a computer. Being able to move things around makes it easier for me. Medium has a wonderful app that you can actually type things into your phone and save it as a draft and come back to it later. Makes it very easy. And that's definitely something I would recommend if someone's trying to get started on Medium. Make sure that you're using drafts for that purpose. It really helps in your creative process when you think of an idea, just to be able to write it down and save it in a safe place. But usually with my poetry, if the words aren't coming to me immediately, I'll just start doing some free association, just start writing whatever comes to my mind. And then I'll go back and edit it down or form it into something. But just having words on the paper really helps, because that's the foundation. That's the basis for it all. Once you have something, you can work with it. That's the hardest part.
Mm-hmm. You just got to start.
Right.
But do you set aside certain times of day also to write more in depth?
I try to do. I write all the time. Is really the thing. I'm writing all the time. If I think of something, I'll wake up in the middle of the night. Sometimes that's what happens when you're writing this way. It's just if an idea comes to you, it just comes to you, and you can't control when it comes to you. So thank goodness for technology that allows me to not have to figure out, oh, where's the paper? Where's the pen? Where's my closest paper and pen? Because my phone is always handy dandy right near me. I can just take it out and start in on something.
Well, pre-smartphone for me, I was writing a screenplay, and I went to karaoke one night, and all of a sudden I was getting ideas for the movie. Like, oh my god, what am I going to write?
Oh.
Then I had all these karaoke slips in front of me. Like, well, I guess we're doing this. So, I mean, you got to imagine a karaoke slip is maybe like 3 inches by 1 inch. So,
Oh my
I left the
gosh.
night with like 2 handfuls of karaoke slips. Like, okay.
Well, at least you
I
had
had,
something.
yeah, I had to. Like, okay, I can't lose this scene. This scene's right in my head. I got to write it.
Right.
Got to answer the call. Do you write something every day?
I write every day.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely do write every day. I don't publish every day. I try to publish every day. I usually try to publish twice a day. That's my goal. But I didn't really finish talking about the way that Medium works, but the whole concept of it is that if you're a paid member, when you support other people's work, part of your payment that you put into the system goes to them. So that's the way that there is an algorithm to it as well, but that's the basic concept of it. So if I'm not writing myself, I'm trying to support other people's work, and I also have articles and poems that are already up on Medium, and our older things can continue to earn money by people giving them attention. So sometimes I'll try to publicize something that I've already published if I'm not publishing that day. But I try to always write even if I'm not publishing something.
Do you keep a journal?
I have multiple journals. They're kind of more like notebooks that are just kind of everywhere just in case I need them.
I try to do it. Well, I'll try to write up each day, but sometimes I have to write about, like I might write about today, tomorrow. But I try to do it at the end of the day because then all of a sudden I start forgetting stuff. Can't do that.
Right.
Now, you were a guest on another podcast called Stop Writing Alone.
Yes.
And it's all about writing.
Yes.
And was it through that podcast that you found out about Medium?
It was through that podcast that I found out about Medium. Nicole Rivera talked about Medium, and it's really funny because she had never really written on Medium. She didn't really have much experience with it, and so I found out about it from her, and I started getting into it, and I messaged her. I was like, oh, I took your advice. I started writing on Medium. And she was like impressed with me, but then also immediately felt like she had to start writing on Medium now because I had taken her advice and she really hadn't even started. So I'm a little ahead of her on the learning curve, and so we talk a lot about writing on Medium, and if she has any questions, I try to answer them, but I'm only a couple of steps ahead of her at this point in terms of the learning curve.
All right, let's get into the clay. So this artistic side awakened the clay sculptor within you again, right?
Yes, it did.
And so you went back to the polymer?
I did go back, and it was really because of the podcast, the Don't Keep Your Day Job podcast. Immediately when I started listening to the podcast, I thought of my writing because it's a skill that I've been developing over the last, several decade, essentially, all through undergrad. It's just all through my master's program and all through law school. It's the skill that I've always excelled at, but that doesn't mean that I don't have other skills. And when I heard at some point on the podcast that you really have to think about the things that you were good at as a child, writing was definitely not the thing that I was good at as a child. I was much better with clay. So that was the first thing that I thought of, and right after writing. And I went to the craft store and I bought a whole bunch of clay, and I just started playing and exploring. And I realized that it's a great medium for jewelry, and jewelry's very easy to transport. The summer months were coming, and a lot of vendor fairs happen during the summer. So I thought that it would be great for me to get an inventory of jewelry going so that I could go to vendor fairs and start getting my name out.
And then you came up with Shine and Marvel Jewelry and Designs?
Yes.
Catchy name.
So if you can't tell, it's Shine and Marvel SAM.
Clever. Here we go,
Yeah.
kids.